Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 141 of ASBN Live, How to Grow a Credible Giving Program. I'm your host, Felicity Sivalingam, Senior Manager of Events and Programming at the American Sustainable Business Network. Today's webinar is a collaboration between ASBN members, 1% for the Planet, and Avocado Green Brands. 1% for the Planet certifies member donations to vetted nonprofits and environmental partners, and Avocado Green Brands has been a strong case study in participating in this global community. They've invited nonprofit partner Rewild to join them in today's discussion. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to Christine Carpio, who's going to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you, Thulasi. Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Carpio, the Senior Manager of Engagement and Social Responsibility at Avocado. And to start this webinar, we'd like to take a moment to showcase one of our ads with 1% for the Planet that was actually out in 2020 when we were the first recipients of their Pinnacle Award. So let's take a look.
For healthy people and a healthy planet, to give more than we take. That's why we're proud to be 1% for the Planet's 2020 Pinnacle Award winner, to be a certified B Corporation, to be organic, and to actually offset more carbon emissions than we produce, all to raise the bar for what it means to be a sustainable brand. Learn more at avocadogreenmattress.com.
Thank you. Cool. Now we can get started with a couple questions and a few Q&As, and then we have some fun things planned for afterwards. So to start, I would like to ask Kate and Carrie, because I think a lot of times people feel that you need to be a bigger business to be part of 1%, but really, like, you can be an individual, you could also be a smaller organization. And just curious if you could speak a little more to how individuals and smaller organizations can also do their part.
Carrie, I can go first and then turn it over to you. So I think it's a great question, and I love starting with it because I really do think it's so important when, especially when we see a beautiful ad from the, amazing Avocado, to make sure that it's really clear that the opportunity to engage is open to everyone, and that it's so important for the planet and for us as kind of actors in the world that we all know that wherever we are as individuals, in a startup company, in a big company, wherever we may be, that there are actions that we can take. So from the 1% for the Planet standpoint, we definitely have ways that individuals as well as companies of all sizes, so including very small companies, can engage on the individual front. The model that we'll be moving into basically right now, starting as we head into 2023, is individual engagement. And that involves a lot of different ways that individuals can give either to 1% for the Planet directly, or to our Planet Impact Fund, or to participate in one of our giving circles, or to use our directory to learn about nonprofits that they choose to give to. So lots of options, but all of them involving ways in which individuals can act through philanthropy to make change, because that's what 1% for the Planet represents. And those donations can be small, or they can be large. Again, it's open to everyone. For businesses, I just would say quickly, like, the awesome thing about 1% for the Planet is whether you are a multi-million-dollar public company or a brand new startup making your first dollar, you have a 1%. And so you can participate as a 1% for the Planet member. So I'll leave it with that and turn it over to you, Carrie.
Hi, yeah. So as director of marketing and brand at a smallish nonprofit, but with a global footprint, 1% has always been a really amazing partner. We've been around since 2008. And when we were just a few people, I was talking to our CEO yesterday and he was like, we were with 1% for the planet from the beginning. So always been super supportive. And I think more importantly than just like the financial aspect, it's really getting people a solid goal, and businesses need to be part of this equation. Like, it is all hands on deck. The climate crisis is super urgent. We need to rewild an area the size of China, which is massive, to meet Paris climate agreements. So we have a lot of work to do, and nonprofits can't do it by themselves. Individuals can't do it by themselves. Governments obviously aren't doing it by themselves. And so we really need and appreciate businesses being part of that effort. It's really important that they feel empowered to do so. It's important to their customers. Customers are a lot more savvy about all of the issues these days. I think most customers are really concerned about the state of the environment and the planet. Kids know a lot about it, a lot more than I did when I was a kid. So I think that it really makes a statement and provides a very solid, and for most people, doable goal. To start leaning in. Like, I would say 1% isn't enough, but everybody needs to start somewhere, and you need to meet businesses and individuals where they are. So I love that this model has evolved over the years. We're connected to early founders of this movement. It started back in the day with Patagonia, and that continues. So it's been a really important partnership and a really important goal for businesses to lean into and to make it part of their strategy.
Totally agree.
And maybe I'll dive in with the next question. And Carrie, actually, to do that, I'll just build on what you were just saying about, 1% is not enough, which is a great thing to note, particularly when you then shortly after that reference Patagonia, because one of the interesting things right now is, as many people have heard, but if you haven't, I'll just quickly share that, Patagonia as a company has made a decision to essentially be 100% for the planet or for purpose, by setting up a perpetual purpose trust. And, there's some great information that you can see, but they are literally 100% for the planet. And the important thing there is not that you shouldn't be 1%, you should be 100%. It should be, or the sort of most important takeaway is they started at 1%. Mm-hmm. And so taking that action, taking that step gets you on a pathway, gets you into community, builds energy, and then, many more steps become open and available to you. So I think that's a really great opportunity. But Carrie, you also spoke really well to the power of businesses. And so, businesses giving to nonprofits. And I was thinking that, Christine, it would be great to hear from you. Like, how would you describe, or what are the components of a great partnership between a business and a nonprofit?
Yes, definitely. Great question. I've worked with, I don't even know, dozens of nonprofits over the years. And I've really had the chance to see, like, this is a great partner. This maybe, we could have communicated more, anything. But I would say the biggest component is just constant communication and just being able to share, like, hey, we're working on this project. Or like I share, like, hey, we're going to have this idea and we want to have a giving component for like a sale or anything. So just that constant communication is just always a plus, even from like initial introductions, planning meetings, sharing impact. It's always appreciated when partners stay in touch. And I think, for instance, when we first started working with Rewild at the beginning of this year, their director of outreach and events offered like a Zoom call between our brand sustainability and communications teams and their teams. So we all hopped on this call. It was really fun. We had like our virtual backgrounds. We all I think there was a game involved. It was just very engaging and a great way to start a partnership. And that just helped set the cadence for, this is what we expect, great communication. And I think just another piece to that is also, I personally love when nonprofits share toolkits. 1% shares them all the time. I think they're so valuable. and just being able to cohesively share impact and projects, campaigns just makes everything so much easier. And then also with employee engagement, I do think that opportunities for us to engage our employees, our customers is always a huge plus. And whether it be virtually now after everything that has happened, or as we start to move into in-person, it's just a great component to have, being able to have our employees feel involved as well. But yeah, I feel like I could speak on about that for so long, about all the great experiences I've had, because I've had so many. But I am interested to hear about the nonprofit side. Carrie, what do you think is a great component or key to having a successful partnership with a brand?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the communication part, and that communication part gets you to the alignment part, which is really critical. I think for nonprofits, it's often hard to say, oh, but we don't do that. We want to do everything, we can't. And I think like having those honest conversations from the beginning is easier when you have good communication and when your teams feel comfortable with each other. You can ask for help, you can set boundaries that you need to, or express concerns that you have. Avocado was pretty easy. They came to us through 1%, so that's a good sign. And then obviously they've built their model around sustainability in the first place. So definitely a very responsible company to work with. And yeah, we did. We had like a Zoom happy hour, and it was fun.
Really fun.
And we didn't just talk about work. We got to know each other as people, because behind brands and behind organization names, there are people. And I think when the people like working together and they enjoy each other's company, I mean, you don't always have to like who you're working with, but we do very much in this case, which is fun. When people involved in the project feel good about it, you're going to get much better results. And I feel like it comes through in what you create together. So it was really fun to work on projects with the Avocado team, and they really leaned in and did very in-depth blog. They have a beautiful online magazine. Please check it out if you haven't seen it. It's incredible. And their writers worked really closely with us. They featured some of the projects that we do in a really compelling, beautiful, and visual way. So I think that because we had that good communication, like Christine said, from the start, it paved the way. But bringing 1% into that equation, it makes it a lot easier, because vetting takes a lot of time. Time is something like none of us have enough of, but with a small team at a nonprofit, it's a much bigger burden. So 1% is very helpful, because there's already a path that a company has taken that shows that they're bought into this concept. It's something important to them that they care about. They've made it part of their business practice, which not all companies do. They should. And I think we'll increasingly need to, as I said, like as the climate crisis gets more and more urgent. But I think that kind of matchmaking is super helpful. And so we knew we were aligned at a very, like foundational level from the beginning, but then the more we communicated and the more we collaborated, the more we found out that we could do so much more together, because there were so many commonalities and things that we wanted to accomplish at the same time. So I think it's just been a very smooth partnership, which is not always the case. And I'm very grateful for that. And it's also been pretty fun.
Exactly.
Lots of fun at work, right?
Right. I think also to add to that, with 1%'s partnership advising component as well, like it's just great to have that resource where it's like, well, where do we want to be in 10 years? When we look back, what do we want to say we accomplished? And having those questions asked in these meetings and having those planning meetings just help us realize, hey, we want to maybe go in this direction next year, or how can we focus on our core advocacy issues and all of the great things we could do, but also trying to focus it a little more on our mission and, where we source and all of that. I just always appreciate 1%. Everybody there too is amazing and so friendly. And it's a great network.
Kate, it might be helpful too for the audience to share kind of like, what is it? What are the steps that both, a company or, like you said, an individual would take to get started with 1%, and also, from the nonprofit side, how do nonprofits get involved?
Sure. And I'll maybe focus on businesses just because that's where our membership model lives. And I think that's really kind of the heart of our partnership model. So first, talking about the businesses. So when a business becomes a member, they are making a commitment. That's an annual commitment that we are their accountability partner for, which is to give their 1%. So it's 1% of their sales, top line sales, not profit. So that's a big deal, even though, again, like we want and we know that people can also do more, but 1% of sales is a big number. It's a very real commitment. And so we focus on that. And during that first year, we really work closely with those businesses to have some of those conversations, like you mentioned, Christine, around the partnership advising, to really, create that new level of understanding of giving is not just something you do at the end of the year if you have a little money left over. It's something that you can bring right into the heart of your business strategy, of some of the problems you may be trying to solve, of some of the solutions you're trying to create, of some of the stories you want to tell, of some of the legacy you want to build toward, all of those good questions. And, echoing Christine, our team does a really fabulous job and has put a lot of sort of thought and learning into how we do that well. So we kind of build that understanding with our members. And then at the same time, we're bringing our expertise from the environmental partners side, where we have, literally thousands of nonprofits across different categories who are approved as part of our network. And so then we're able to kind of connect those dots of, based on this, unique combination of goals that business A has, we can match them up with some of the nonprofits over here that are a particularly good connection. And as you all have described so well, like, it's pretty magical when the two come together and you build these great partnerships. And we really believe in that. And that's an important thing that we always want people to understand, is 1% for the planet is not a foundation, meaning we don't take all the money in and then give it out. We're not standing between the donor, which is the member, and the recipient, which is the nonprofit. We're facilitating a direct connection between the two, so that then that, special magic beyond just the giving can happen. And that, often leads to more impact, because ideas are sparked between those conversations, between the relationships that are developed, between the understanding that is developed, that, we simply, couldn't facilitate it. It really is a relationship, which is the unique combination of those partners. So, that happens, and that, then sort of takes off and takes next steps. It is an annual commitment. And so, Christine kind of alluded to this, that maybe after 1 year you implement your giving, and we certify it. And I'll talk a little bit about certification. But then in the next year, you're like, okay, that was great, and we really want to lean into this part of what we're trying to build as our legacy, or we really want to add, this or that, or, test the waters over here. And so it's an ongoing process. And I think that's really important to realize and to celebrate, because we definitely, work with our companies to educate them on the value of unrestricted giving, support good nonprofits by giving them resources to make good choices with. Don't overly constrain them by saying, I'll only support this or that project. We get that sometimes a company may want to sort of focus on a particular piece of the work that a nonprofit is doing, and that makes sense. But we definitely are proponents of build strong, trusting relationships, and then let the experts, make good decisions with the resources and report back to you on that. And we also, are really supportive of long-term relationships, so that, nonprofits, and so that the whole relationship can really flourish over the years. And we recognize that changes happen, and sometimes certain grants or donations are, intentionally, time-bound and short-lived. And sometimes a relationship, it's time to transition to the next one. And so, it's a really dynamic process that we, just continue every year to celebrate. And again, our team does a really great job of, working with both the nonprofits and the businesses to understand kind of what serves them best. I'll maybe stop there. I will definitely talk about certification at some point, but I feel like I've just said a whole lot of words all at once, so it might be good to hear another voice. So maybe just to expand on the partnership advising a little bit, Christine, it would be great to hear, just a little bit more about like how Avocado has gone about selecting nonprofit partners, and sort of evolving that over time, because I think that's a helpful thing to understand.
Yes, definitely. So our giving strategy has evolved so much as we've grown in the past 3 years. In the beginning, we chose a new partner every month. So it was, each month had a different focus. And then the following year, we're like, okay, let's simplify it a little bit, kind of make a little more impact and choose a new partner every quarter. Every quarter we'll focus on a different piece of conservation, whether it be water, whether it be people, that the next could be climate, anything like that. We tried that out. And it's been always great. We've been able to make so much impact, but we realized we really wanted to make a very big impact and continually share stories with one partner. So then we chose to work with one big partner for the full year. And 1% really helped find this because, going from working with a new partner every month to just choosing one was extremely hard. And you're like, which way should I go? Can we find one partner that covers all of these areas? But 1% really, we just gave them, hey, we want to focus on wildlife, or we wanted to focus on conservation this year. And they came to us with maybe 4 or 5 different options. And from there, we were able to choose Rewild. And from the very beginning, it's just been so great. And yeah, I think just over the years, it has really been important for us to diversify our giving. And as the world has changed over the years, we always want to show up as allies for BIPOC and LGBTQ plus communities, and just having the opportunity with our partner Rewild, who already has projects that include all of that. It just felt very seamless and natural to find the right projects. And to go back to Kate, what you were saying about, kind of wanting to choose one project and like focus on that project, we've always made sure that we're flexible about that, to make sure that, hey, listen, like the nonprofit knows where funding is needed. And it's not so much like just going to be dictated by the story we want to tell. We'll somehow weave that story into our larger mission. And it's just always worked for us. And yeah, it's been a long journey, and I'm excited to continue growing the program. But it's always evolving, just like the world and society. And you just kind of have to go with the flow while also, being smart about it.
And thank you both for talking about unrestricted giving, because I think it's a very hard thing for nonprofits to say, well, just trust us with the money. But, we do have plans, and we do have, lots of accountability and transparency about where, our projects are getting funded, but things happen. So even though we're very biodiversity focused, people are a big part of that equation. So for example, when COVID hit, it affected work in the Amazon, and indigenous communities were being affected by COVID and if you don't know, 80% of the world's most biodiverse places are stewarded by indigenous peoples. So they are very critical guardians of the wild that we have left. And so we were able to, because of unrestricted funding, support COVID relief efforts, because it directly ties to the larger mission. But that kind of thing is hard to turn around quickly when there's an urgent need or an emergency. Wildfires are destroying, I don't even want to call them wildfires anymore, because the causes are not natural. And the conditions that are set up are definitely man-made, but the deforestation that's happening because of wildfires, we can respond to more quickly when we do have unrestricted funding. So that's a really important thing for donors and businesses to understand, but it's hard to pitch sometimes. So I appreciate you both pitching it for me.
Yeah, and also like as part of our strategy too, we do have like our key partners, but we always make sure to leave room for these urgent opportunities or partners where maybe there is a wildfire and we want to provide relief or anything that can happen in the world. That's always been part of our strategy as well. So I appreciate you speaking to that.
And maybe piggybacking on that, because that's a form of flexibility that we've seen, is really valuable. And there's also flexibility in how people give. So we've been kind of generally talking about or referring to dollars here, but Carrie, maybe if you could speak a little bit to the value of receiving different types of support. So you meant, we talked some about unrestricted financial, but our network also provides volunteer donations, volunteer time, in-kind donations. And it would be great just to hear from the nonprofit standpoint. And then Christine, maybe from you as well, from the kind of business standpoint, what's the value of that flexible giving and the different types of giving?
Sure. Yeah. I like partnerships where everybody's kind of bringing their strengths to the table. So we have a couple of partners that do provide in-kind support, like Aiken Gump, the law firm, provides in-kind legal support that is an enormous help, and they're an amazing firm. So that's them bringing their expertise to the table, which helps us in operations. We also work with Global Rescue. They provide in-kind support as well. So when there's again, matching up like the need and the right partner is really important. It's difficult when someone comes to you and wants to offer something, but you don't really have that need. Your need is over here. I think it's important to be honest about those things, even though it's hard to turn down sometimes. Trying to create a need when there isn't one, or trying to fit a square peg into a round hole can make the experience difficult in the long run for both partners. So again, back to what Christine said, the very beginning, like that communication factor is so important. And then having an advisor like 1% to help facilitate those conversations and help maybe when business speak and nonprofit speak collide, being like a moderator of that process is a very valuable thing. So I think it's just really important to be honest about what your needs are and where the partner can best lean in, and decide where you can meet in the middle and both feel really good about it. Right now, we don't have a lot of volunteer opportunities through our organization because we work in so many different parts of the world. We work with a lot of local partners, but I get these questions from people who subscribe to our newsletter, right, to our general inbox often. So it is something that we're looking into creating, perhaps through another partnership. But I think being honest about where your needs are at this time and where they could be, or what you could build together. That's always the creative and fun part for me is, I don't like try to offer, oh, this is our partnership package, because that kind of strips away all of the creativity and creating and collaborating on something new that you could create together. So I think it is back to that, bringing your strengths to the table and then collaborating on how can we leverage those to really support each other.
Yes, very well said. And from the business standpoint for Avocado, we're learning more about how we can kind of have more in-kind donation opportunities, especially through 1%. So I wish I had like a better answer for this, but I would say just from a business standpoint, sometimes money, you just can't do it. And just having the opportunity to kind of use that option instead of maybe making a $5,000 donation and maybe donating $5,000 worth of product if you produce in-house or you have your own supply chain. I think that makes it easier to have that option when you really sometimes just can't make it work. And as we all know, like with the economy and everything, things are just so up and down that it's just valuable no matter what for a business.
And one thing I would add to these great, thoughtful responses is one of the things we've seen across our network is that oftentimes the kind of exchange of non-monetary value is a really great way, to your point earlier, Carrie, that, companies are people, or brands are made up of people, and organizations are made up of people. That's a great way to really bring in more of the people involved in the entities. So if there's a volunteer opportunity, or for the legal support that you're getting in kind, that's probably a really meaningful engagement for those lawyers who are able to allocate some of their time to you. And so I think, it's like a net positive for humanity to be able to, have people engage in that way. And we really do believe that when you can take some action that does like lift you up, it sort of tees you up to take that next action and to do more. So I think it really just adds to the overall value. And then one other observation, just listening to both of you, is I think one of the really powerful things about this sort of direct giving model that we just so deeply believe in is that, oftentimes there's a power imbalance when donors are giving to nonprofits and there's not a relationship. And so there's some sort of power in the money flowing from one to the other. And I think, what you all are sort of showing is that the way it works when you really are communicating clearly with each other and in a partnership that's mutual, is that the power is flowing both ways. So, one entity may be bringing resources, the other is driving impact and inform it, and so then it starts flowing back and forth. And again, that is a really important way in which we change the world, so that we are, making sure that resources and impact are matching up in the most powerful ways. So thank you both for embodying that so well. It's really, really awesome to see, and just, isn't something we had sort of talked about in prepping for this call, but I realized you do sort of embody that so well. And it is such an important thing for the 1% for the planet model, and just for, really how we kind of create that next way that we're going to, make a better world.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think now it might be a nice time to engage everybody else on the webinar. We'd love to launch a poll, a quick little question to see, kind of gauge everybody's answer and interest. And yes, I think it has been launched. So feel free to take a vote, we'll call it. And yeah, I can speak to it too. What is the biggest challenge to developing smart environmental giving? And there might not be I don't think there is a wrong answer, but let's see what everyone has to say.
I see the G word in there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not giving, just to be clear.
No, we like that G word.
Yes, that's the good one. Oh, wow.
Oh, we're tied.
Yeah.
Yeah, triple tie. Well, since the G word being greenwashing was mentioned, maybe I can tackle that one by just talking a little bit about our certification process and just some of what we've learned through that. And then Christine, you can prepare your deep analysis of the rest of the poll. But, I mentioned the sort of annual commitment that members make in their giving, and that the, partnerships are, the giving happens each year, and then we certify it. So what does certification mean? And so every year, 1% for the Planet members are required, in order to continue to be members, to certify that the giving that they have done during that year, to prove essentially that they have met their 1% commitment. And the way we do that is that our team has a process that we're always trying to make as streamlined and celebratory as possible, but it is rigorous, and it involves submitting evidence of revenue And that needs to be some formal documentation. It can't just be kind of an internal, like, hey, we made this much. It's got to be some sort of third party tax form, accountant form that shows here's the revenue that is the basis for our 1%. So we get that. And then we also assemble from the member the different receipts of giving. So acknowledgement letters, whatever the form of recognition that the giving has occurred. And then we do the math. Does the tally of those total acknowledgements equal 1% of that revenue amount? And once that has happened, that company is certified. And, I mentioned the flexible giving, volunteer in kind. We also incorporate that. So if volunteer time has been used or in kind donations, we value those, and we have, clear information about how the valuation is done in terms of dollars per hour and what the value of an in-kind product is and things like that. So we have, we try to make it as clear and simple as possible, but we package all of that into a dollar value, and that needs to equal 1%. And our team does a really, really great job of that. We actually just got our sort of most recent data, and we're at about 98% certified. And our goal is to always be at, in the sort of 90 to 95% rate. And different people are certifying at different times based on their fiscal years. So we have, a little bit of up and down, but we want, and we are at a place where when consumers, when other brands, when nonprofits see that 1% logo, they know that it means kind of the opposite of greenwashing. That this is a brand that is not only saying they're doing this, but they're working closely with a partner who's, as I mentioned at the beginning, who's their accountability partner, helping them to make sure that they meet that commitment annually. And as anyone involved in life knows, the turn of the year goes around pretty quickly. It feels like you're just starting it when you're getting to the end of it and needing to submit your taxes and do your budget for the next year. So it takes some organization and sort of fiscal discipline just to make sure you have all of that lined up. So we really appreciate working closely with our companies to just make that happen each year, and to set them up to be able to communicate that really credible message to their consumers that, like, yep, we said that we're going to do this, and look, now we're doing it, and so we're going to start it again next year. And that momentum gets to be really powerful. And I think Christine, you could probably affirm this, but with each passing year, you kind of get a little better as we do with all things at, like, oh, we know we're going to need to submit all these receipts, so I'm going to put them in the same folder, and boom, it's easy, it's done. So It's great to see how, as members get their understanding, incorporated into their operations of how the certification works, it just becomes, just a kind of check at the end of the year, and then they're really putting their energy into the partnership itself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely something that has been evolving for us too, making sure, as soon as the donation is made, we get our receipt, then we have our spreadsheet, we keep that all organized, upload everything, and then the certification process is just so much easier at the end of the year. And yeah, going back to seeing that 1% logo, as me personally, I know when I see that, I'm so excited, and I know, okay, I'm going to support this brand, because consumers nowadays, that's really what they're looking for. They want the verification, they want the credibility, or else, really they're not going to want to support your brand. And I think that's just something that makes 1% very valuable as well. And going back to the measuring and the defining impact piece, that has also, goes back to communication, just being able to communicate, like, hey, we do expect this afterwards, just so that we can share this. At Avocado, we have an annual impact report where we lay out all of our giving program and what we've done in the past year. So all of that helps us define the impact, and it wouldn't be possible without the help of the nonprofit that we're working with in that scenario.
Yeah, and the nonprofit should be able to help you with, I saw measuring and defining impact was tied with greenwashing. It always helps to kind of begin with the end in mind, if you can. I think it's fine to do more exploratory, work in the beginning, but if you know what you want to accomplish, working with the nonprofit to be like, is this realistic? Is this realistic in this time frame? And getting their guidance and also understanding what they measure. Because if they're not measuring what you want to measure, you're not going to have the data that you need to, fight back against any kind of accusation of greenwashing, right? So that's something that your nonprofit partner should be able to help you with and should have metrics on already, because as nonprofits, we're measuring our impact and also backing that up. So, an impact report would give you a good sense of what they're already measuring. An initial conversation would, and those kind of work hand in hand. So if you're able to measure and prove, then greenwashing shouldn't be an issue. And again, this is where having a third party like 1% can help guide those conversations, and also have you and the brand and the nonprofit partner thinking about those things at the same time, or at least like prompting those conversations from the very beginning. It'll make it a lot smoother moving forward.
Exactly. And also the finding the right organization piece, I think 1% helps that. Going back to like the partnership advising, it does also come from the business standpoint to sit down with the team and figure out, hey, what do we want to do? What aspects, we want to help everything and everywhere, but sometimes it's just not possible. And just being able to find what your core advocacy issues are and focusing on that, and then taking that conversation from there to find the right organization that's going to help you get that impact. It all is just a circle. And of course, 1% just helps make everything so much easier.
I know this wasn't one of the, sorry, Christine. I know this wasn't one of the winning choices in the poll, but I did see, sharing stories about it. So I have a couple of thoughts on that. Like we have a team of 8, which depending on your reference point could be a very big team for a nonprofit, or a small comms and marketing team for a nonprofit. So I think getting a sense of, what do you have available that would be made available to us? That's an initial conversation that's worth having. I know it's also been helpful for when partners offer to, send a photographer or lend the expertise of their in-house comms and marketing teams. So that's another kind of in-kind piece that could be considered, because nonprofits often need all the help they can get to share their stories, and capturing video and photography can be it can be expensive, and it can be hard, and it can be difficult. But without it, it's a challenge to capture the imagination of customers that you're trying to reach, or other possible donors. So that's just another consideration for a way that you could help in kind. Tied to that though, it has to be the right kind of photographer, and they should always be accompanied by someone who's familiar with the people, the local cultures, the species being studied, et cetera, because the last thing that any of us need is to cause more harm, right? So just with that caveat.
Yes,
and just to sort of chime in and connect a few dots, and also have seen some questions that I can weave in. So in terms of kind of who can be involved, and like, what does this look like if you're not a mattress brand, for example, just to give a sense of scope, we mentioned small businesses to large businesses, absolutely, like that full range. 1% for the Planet also has about 65 different industries represented, and actually no more than 10% of our network is in any one industry. So, we have outdoor industry, we have food and beverage, we have apparel, like health and beauty across the board. So really, and we're seeing more and more services too, I should say. So lawyers, marketing firms, things like that, which is great, because I think increasingly consumers, and this speaks to the business case, which hasn't been said directly in the questions, but I'm kind of getting I think it's an important thing to address, is that we definitely believe that it is and should be good for business to do the right thing and to have a credible commitment to the planet. And we really do see that. And as we see more services joining, we really see the ways in which consumers are kind of creating that positive pressure for, not only do I want my outdoor gear to be aligned with the outdoors, but I want, essentially from my clothing to my life insurance, to my banking, to my toothpaste, I want to be able to use my dollars that I purchase things with to drive change. So again, multiple sectors finding that there is a good business case. We do work with our companies to help them in terms of understanding like how to position this, because there are different laws that vary from state to state about sort of how you can talk about these types of commitments. And we don't provide legal advice. Everyone needs to kind of vet their sort of ways of positioning directly with their legal team. But we definitely provide language that we have vetted that, works from at a general level in terms of how to talk about, as a member, you are committing to giving back to environmental nonprofits. So that was one specific question. And I think that was John Scott. If you wanted to have a further conversation, feel free to reach out to us directly. But I do just want to share that we do help our businesses to navigate some of the, less exciting and sexy topics of, just how do you do this from a kind of business legal standpoint. And, that's definitely something that, we're always happy to, again, not provide legal advice on, but to say, here's a framing of some of the issues and some questions that you may want to ask. One thing too that I want to mention that I think is really important is, and this is something I really love about our network, is the competition within the network is not brand to brand. So we have a lot of comparable brands in the same category who are showing up as 1% for the Planet members and, are part of a community with their 1% for the Planet shared logo and shared commitment. But through their giving choices, their sort of unique custom giving choices are telling unique custom stories about their brands. And so they're differentiated while being part of a common community. So for example, Naturepedic, who's an awesome brand mattress in our network, they are also 1% for the Planet member, like Avocado, and they have different giving stories. They tell a different story. And so we celebrate both of them coexisting. Similarly, we have several different tea brands, hot tea, cheers. And, many of those actually have come to us through recommendations from the other tea brands, which like totally warms my heart, because it's like people in our network who truly see that this does not need to be a competitive play, because it's unnecessary, because you get to have that distinction and that business opportunity and that impact opportunity and that storytelling opportunity that you get to customize while all being part of a shared community of a movement, because we really do believe it's a movement, because as we get the brand, the logo, the consumer awareness, we just create this really beautiful cycle of more and more impact, because more people are saying, hey, I'm going to use my dollars to essentially vote for planet and people by choosing these products. So multiple industries, the competition is not through, is not within our model. It's, that happens elsewhere. There's lots of opportunity for differentiation within the model, as well as that shared community, which is really powerful.
And I'm glad that you said you're also seeing more services companies coming. One of the things we rebranded in 2021 as Rewild, we were previously Global Wildlife Conservation. And one of the things that we want to do with our new brand and name is kind of rethink what conservation means, because you don't have to be a scientist to be a conservationist. If numbers are your thing, you bring that strength to the table. If art is your thing, you bring that strength to the table. If you're a lawyer, if you're a consultant, there's a lot of ways to be a contributor to this bigger puzzle. And the ops team, they're so critical in getting all of the work that we're able to do in the field done. So, I think we could all be conservationists and it doesn't have to be exclusionary. It needs to be a much broader tent because again, it's urgent and we need it all hands on deck. And the thing is that all of these skills are needed in some capacity. So I just encourage everyone to think of themselves as a conservationist, and you're all bringing your unique talents and skills to a much needed effort.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really powerful point, which I'll just build on to kind of underscore something I was just saying, which is that we do think about consumers, many of who are also people, just like people in organizations, just like, people in companies. So it's all people. And for many people, life is hard. They're dealing with sort of limited resources to make the choices that they can, or they're, maybe resources aren't the question, but their focus professionally is not a conservationist or something that's explicitly environmental, but yet they want to be making a difference. So part of what 1% for the planet is creating an ecosystem where if what you're doing is simply purchasing the things that you need in your daily life to support your family, to be able to do your job, those purchases get to be votes for the kind of planet you want to create, the kind of communities that you want to create, so that you can, as you're saying, be an artist, be someone who's really great with numbers and deploy those skills in powerful ways, and have your purchases all represent ways in which, just the day-to-day life that you lead is lifting up the planet. And I think that's really important because, there are many, many things demanding of our time and effort and energy. And so the more we can, make it that it's not about choosing to be an environmentalist or not. It's about being given lots of opportunities to be a solution creator and a change maker in your daily life while, navigating, what are sometimes challenging circumstances and pressures of just living in this world.
Exactly. Okay. I guess now, are there any new questions? Let me just check the Q&A.
I feel like we've addressed a lot of them. I can
that one.
look through as well if you want to show some of the fun stuff we've done together.
Oh yes, going back to storytelling and how we've taken our partnership and really just elongated it with not just social media, not just like an end of the year impact report. We have, as Carrie mentioned, our magazine, which is like a blog, but we don't call it our blog, we call it our magazine. And we've had, I think, maybe about 5 stories that we did with Rewild. And if Dulasi, you can bring up the slides, I'd love to showcase how we've taken all of that information and brought it onto social media using an artist who went and created all of these beautiful illustrations. And as you can see, the first one was about rewilding an island. I think it was in the Caribbean. And if you can move to the second one, Dulasi, we had a focus on the man who is really passionate about the bear tapir, I think maybe, and just all the work he's doing to help conserve that species. And he's just such a great guy. We did interviews. We had a very long, in-depth conversation and translated that to our magazine, and it performed very well. And then thirdly, there is Rewilding the Galapagos, which of course with, I'll say trying to advocate for ethical tourism. I think this was a great piece to help people understand just, how important these lands are and how we can ensure that we're not going in and messing everything up and conserving that. And then lastly, there was their lost species. Rewild has, I think, is it 25 of the top most lost species?
Yeah, we have like a top 25 list, but then we have sub lists, and the full list is over 2,000.
Wow.
But yeah, lost species are species that haven't been seen for 10 years or more, that we don't think are extinct, and that we work with teams to look for them. And it captures the public's imagination. And also we've found 8 of them, 8 of those top 25. So that's always, feel like in this kind of, I read a Washington Post article about like hope fatigue. In this state of hope fatigue that we're all living in after 2+ years of a pandemic, and lots of other things going on, you know, these stories are always exciting for journalists to cover, and also for the public to read about. So this was a fun piece, kind of talking about the lost species effort. So.
Yeah. And it was fun. We did focus it around Earth Month, but as a way to help engage our employees, we put out polls asking, like, you know, we named, I think, 5 of the species, and, you know, we asked for employees to vote as to which species should we help find. And it was really nice. Everybody was reacting. We made it very fun and engaging. And it's just another way to, you know, help employees feel connected to the brand. And it is big. It feels better to be a part of a company that has a mission rather than, you know, just like going about your day. I think it just helps connect everything and bring everybody closer. And it always goes a long way. Awesome.
All right. Well, I think we're at about our time, which is amazing. Goes by really fast. So I don't know if maybe if each of us just want to share one sort of wrap up, like, you know, here's how you could reach me and here's, you know, action you could take. Should we wrap up in that way? And I can go first, just to say I really appreciate people who've been listening and asking great questions. And I definitely encourage you to, if you do have sort of more specific follow-up questions, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to find me there, Kate Williams. And I'm happy to answer any questions there and just continue the conversation. And I also encourage you to check out our website, where we have good information about how you can, you know, learn more about our model, join if you want to, you know, check out what we're doing for individuals, read some of our blog posts. So all sorts of good stuff there. And thank you again.
Yes. And Algo, thank you so much, everybody, for being on this call and engaging with us, and Carrie and Kate for just always having great conversations. I feel like we can talk for another 2 hours. And I can't believe how quickly it went by, but you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Thulasi has posted our links here. And if you'd like to check out more about Avocado's giving and what we've done over the past 3+ years, we have a bunch of resources on our website that you can always feel free to browse.
Yeah, and thank you to ASBN for hosting us, and to Christine for inviting us and being a great partner. Same to you, Kate. You've been with us from the beginning, and you personally, and 1%. So just really grateful for that. And I would encourage businesses that aren't yet on the 1% platform to check it out. I think it really helps sustainability efforts become stronger and more meaningful. And if you're interested in Rewild and the lost species, check out, we're at Rewild on all the social channels, and my LinkedIn is listed here. Our website's rewild.org. And we just put out our impact reports. So happy to point people in that direction too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. And Carrie and Christine, so delightful to get to have a conversation with you, and I appreciate all your great work in the world so much.
Yes, thank you.
Same. All right.